football podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, presented by betonline.ag. Once again, I'm your host, Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by Badger legend, Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, how are we doing today?
Oh, we're good. We are good. As always, we're always good, Matty P. We got a great guest on. Scott Starks, one of the best, probably one of, if not the best cornerbacks to play at Wisconsin. One of my favorite plays of all time. I know, Sparky, you probably get this every day, but that Kyle Orton fumble pickup for the touchdown to beat Purdue at Purdue in 2004. I think about it probably like once a week. Like, what a cool, I guess we'll just jump in. Like, dude, how cool was that play?
You know, in the moment, it just seemed like a normal play. And plus, I thought it was going to get called back. But that was an awesome moment for sure. And like you said, you think about it every week. Imagine I probably think about it every day. It would seem like it's the only play I've ever made in my life, because I work with a few individuals that, you know, went to Purdue, or they may look me up, and that's the only play they ever see. And so it seems like I had one play in college and that was it. But definitely was an awesome moment amongst some awesome good friends as well. So yeah, great play.
I mean, we'll go into it, but I do remember that because Rob Brooks cut his legs out. He fumbled. If he just fell down, the game was over.
Rob
just cut him out.
Mm-hmm.
You picked that ball up. Yeah. Tell it from your angle.
Yeah. So he hit the corner. It's like a 3rd and 1 play, and he obviously had it. So I feel bad saying this. My mindset is I just want to hit him as hard as I can in his leg, just to put a little bit of pain in him. And so when I did it, he kind of like spent around, and Rob kind of hit him up top, and like Rob's leg or something maybe hit the ball. And then I look up and I see the ball. I'm like, ball. And so I scoop it and I'm running as fast as I can. Actually, a guy I ended up playing with in Jacksonville has actually chased me on that. We played tight end for them. And I get into the end zone. It's kind of like quiet. And you see, I'm kind of like looking around like, okay, they didn't stop me. And then everybody jumped on top of me. I get to the sidelines like, okay, let's just be calm, because they're probably going to call this one back. And then we look at the replay. It's like, oh, this is without a doubt. We got this thing. But great play. I wish we could have went on to do bigger and better things that year. We had to went on a nasty little losing streak at the end. But that was a great season.
It was a great season with the worst 2 losses I think I've ever been a part of.
Yes.
Sad. Let's not go there. But let's go back to, if we can. First off, Sparky, I got to ask you, dude. It says online that you're 178 pounds when you were playing. Is that true?
So it's not, and it is at the same time. So if you're looking at from when I was in college, you know, we had RUDs, right? And you would call them RUDs, tights, whatever they call them now.
Spandex, yeah.
Spandex, to keep it all tight, you know. I would always put weights in my RUDs, always, from day one. Once I realized some of the older guys were doing it, I mean, I perfected it. Like, I would tape them around my RUDs. I would put up some in the front, some in the back, whatever I had to do to appear that I was heavier. Because I played some games in my freshman year at 149. I was a slim guy, you know, coming out of camp. I think when I originally arrived on campus, I may have been 152, and then towards my, you know, when the games began, I had lost a little weight and got down to 149. So it was always hard for me to keep on weight. Then once I got into the league, it was the same thing. They were actually fining me if I was underweight. And so I remember, like, one of my last times weighing in, I had drank so much water because we had to weigh in that day. It's a final weigh in. I'm walking on the scale. I step on, I barely hit weight. As soon as I stepped out, all over the place. So yes, weight was a struggle for me. It was definitely was a struggle.
I remember Pro Day in 2004, and I just remember you walking in, and I was like, what the hell is this guy doing? And you had like 2.5 pound, the small weights, the 5s, in where you put the pads, and you were like kind of like going real slow. I was like, this guy has like 10, 12 extra pounds. You know, you had like 12.5 pounds in your pads.
By any means possible.
I love that. Because you would have to wake up and like chug one of those metric shakes in the mornings or at night.
I had so many tricks up my sleeve. I remember also we would do the bipod. And so I would get on the scale. You get on the scale before the bipod, and you normally don't have on anything but RUDs. And so I found a way to slip 2.5s in between my thighs in the ruts. And so I would step off and I would kind of like slide them out. And then you get inside the bipod and they were like, we can't get this thing to work. Your body, you don't have any body fat. Well, it really wasn't that. As a fact, I was messing up the scale because I was 5 pounds more outside the bipod than I was when I got inside the bipod. I was like, I don't know what's going on, man. I'm just like a specimen. I don't know.
So let's go back to really little Scott Starks then. Growing up in St. Louis, you went to one of the, I think one of the best high schools. Was it Hazelwood?
Hazelwood East.
Hazelwood East for football.
Yep.
So when do you start playing sports? When do you realize that you're like lightning fast? And when do you combine that with football?
Yeah, so my brother, he's actually 6 years older than me. And I would just go to his games. And I was always built a little bit different mentally. So I would actually sit there and watch. And so when it came time for me, we couldn't start till we were 7. So I remember I was 6 getting ready to be 7. That's when you can start. And my parents were like, okay, we're going to go sign you up. I'm like, okay, let's do it. But I'm not going to his team. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, his team sucks. I want to go play for that team over there. I like their uniforms. And they always kick the crap out of my brother's team. I was like, okay. And, this was a huge sacrifice for my parents because the parks were probably 20 minutes apart, And so they said, okay. And it ended up being the same organization that actually Ezekiel Elliott plays for. Of course, I was long gone by the time he got there. But myself, Brandon Williams also played there, and a couple other guys played at this organization as well. And so my first year was a very average year. And I didn't play until probably the 4th game of the season out of 6 games. And what happened is the kid got hurt, and he's like, who wants to play quarterback now? And I'm like, I'll play quarterback. And so from there, it just really took off. The next season, I'm talking about, just really turned out. I went to a new coach. That coach became my coach from the time I was 8 to the time I was 13, and really just took off as a leader on the field. And, my goal was every time I left the field that somebody was talking about number 7. And so had a great coach. He had some unorthodox methods, cussed us out a lot as kids, got called a lot of bad words, but at the same token, he really loved us and showed us some great fundamentals that really carried on for the rest of my career.
You and Brandon played in high school together too, right?
Yeah. So oddly enough, me and Brandon have gone to every single school I've gone to. Brandon has gone to. We didn't become best friends until we got to high school. He originally went to the same high school that Lawrence Maroney went to, and then I remember him walking up to me after one of my games in high school. He said, hey, I'm coming to your school next year. And I knew Brandon kind of been crossing. We had just lost. I'm like, okay, whatever. So he actually came, and then we just, immediately clicked up, and we dominated together on the track and, on the football field as well.
Man, I cannot imagine a 4x1 team in high school that had you and B. Will on it. Like, you guys must have absolutely just like beat up on everybody else around you.
What's crazy is 4x1 wasn't our strong point because I was a 200, 400, 4x2, 4x4 guy. Oh. I really only ran the 100 like a couple of times. And out of those couple of times, I was able to, no boast to myself, I was able to break the record one time. And after that, I really wasn't a 100 runner. And neither was B. Will. B. Will was a 100 runner. But we both were very solid, the 200 and 400. I don't know if you all remember Moss. Moss also ran with us. He was on our 4x2 as well. And then Coop, of course, he ran track. He was more of a shot putter as well. So a lot of guys that actually end up going to Wisconsin, we actually ran with as well.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
Two of like the best guys to play at Wisconsin, same high school. But that was also because they, I feel like they went into the high school for that reason. They had a lot of success there. Yeah.
So it's going all the way back to, I think the original guy that went to Wisconsin from my high school, he may have been the first, is Terrell Fletcher.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Right.
So Terrell, I grew up watching Terrell. He played with my cousin. And then from there, we had just a host of other guys. My brother's best friend went there, Charles Williams, a couple other guys. And then, of course, Jamar. And then, I remember going on to my recruiting visit, and Jamar was my host. And I had already committed to Northwestern at the time. and Coach Albie convinced me to come up on a recruiting visit. Recruiting visit was terrible. I mean, it was absolutely horrible. My plane was delayed. It was snow everywhere. You know, you walk to the stadium, they show you your jersey. My jersey didn't even pop up. They're like, okay, well, let's just go eat. So I'm the only one at this point because everybody else was already, you know, moved along further during the trip. And so when it came to me linking up with Fletch, he's like, what do you want to do? You want to go somewhere? You want to do this? I was like, I just really want to watch film. That's it. Just give me some one-on-ones. I'll just sit here. He's like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah. So I sat there and I watched film and just one-on-ones over and over. And he's like, so what you think? I was like, I want to go here. He's like, all right. I was like, I'm leaving after this year. And you can wear number 2. You probably end up starting and, you know, it's yours. You take the reins and run with it. And I'm like, cool. So I went in, talked to Albie the next day. I'm like, I'm going to be a Badger for sure. He's like, you sure? I'm like, definitely. This is where I need to be. And so went in, came and wore number 2 and ended up starting my freshman year. Had a decent freshman year, but enough to get me going and get started toward a pretty solid career.
Dude, that's how it came to be. You just sat in a room watching film with Fletch.
That's it. And, you know, we had Mike Eckles was in the other room. Yep. That's all I wanted to do was just watch one-on-ones. And then who can I get excited about Wisconsin from watching Jamar Fletcher? Like he's an exciting guy. He's going to make plays. He's going to talk stuff. He's got mad swagger, but he's going to back it up. So that was that was my start to Wisconsin at that point.
So wait, hold on. That's how you got number 2?
Originally, to be honest, I wanted to wear number 5. Because I was 5 in high school and I knew coming in Brooks Bolger had number 5. So I was talking to Fletch. I'm like, I don't know what number I want to wear. He's like, come get number 2. And I wore number 2 previously when I was a sophomore in high school because of Charles Woodson. And he said, come wear number 2. You got number 2. The spot's yours. It's open. You and Mike X back there. Go get it. And that's kind of how it started. And then, of course, I wasn't even starting at first my freshman year because I was absolutely horrible at first. Because I didn't play cornerback. I didn't play cornerback in high school. And I remember, you know, in that summer, just ripping guys' shirts off and just trying to just do my best out there and be an athlete. But ended up learning the position. Then first game was against Virginia. Rainy day, rain delay. Ended up getting like a couple of plays. And then the next game, we played against Oregon. And BJ Tucker, he's still my guy, great guy, but he ended up getting a personal foul on the sideline early in the first or second quarter. He really didn't do anything. And he got yelled at, cussed out. Coach said, Scott, get in there. I'm like, okay, bright-eyed, fairy tale. I ended up getting a pick against Joey Harrington. Praise the Lord, he threw it right to me. So I was like, okay, bro. And then from there, I just kind of kept the position from that point. We played against David Carr next game, got a pick against him as well. So
what was it like? Because our class was a good class. I mean, you graduated different times, so it kind of offshoots it. But you know, you came in and not just you, but Jimmy, Brett, you guys all saw a lot of time in the backfield and on the field. Yeah. What was that like coming in as that group and kind of taking over?
Yeah, so when I came in, I'm trying to think of what the coach was name at that time. Coach Bradford.
Bradford, because he recruited me.
Yeah, Bradford. Bradford was a good guy. He really taught some great fundamentals. And I remember sitting down at seminary, and he's like, you know, 2 of you guys got to play. And it was me, it was Johnny Sylvain, it was Brett Bell, it was Jimmy Leonard, and it may have been one other person, but I think we all ended up playing that year except for Jay Sill. We all
– It was Rob
Brooks, excuse me. Yeah, Rob Brooks as well. And all of us end up, you know, making some contribution at some point that year. So just seeing the maturation, especially of Jimmy, when he came in, you knew it was something different about Jimmy. You knew it was. He wasn't, you know, over the top as far as just being like loud and boisterous, but you knew that he knew his stuff way better than everyone else. He didn't come off as athletic as everybody else, but when he would make plays, you're like, how the heck did he just do that? Or go catch punch, he'll catch it behind his back. Like, this is weird. And then we go do a dunk contest, and he wins a dunk contest. Like, maybe this guy is more athletic than what I'm really picturing him to be. And so you just knew it was something different about him. Rob was just a solid football player. And of course, Brett was a very, very solid guy, had all the athletic ability and talent in the world, and came in, a highly touted player as well. And then JC, I think, was number 10 coming in, and Brett Bell was number 2 coming in. I wasn't ranked on the cornerback, and I shouldn't have been because I was absolutely horrible.
So we talk with a lot of guys about the seminary, their seminary experience. What was your first seminary experience like? And then how did that sort of change as you went on and became the guy?
Yeah. So, I mean, you hear all these myths and stories, you can't go to sleep. They're going to beat you up and, they're going to pour water on you. Nobody has time for that. You're too tired for dumb stuff. Like, yeah, you're gonna be steaming hot. You're not gonna need a blanket or anything. You're just gonna lay across the bed when you get an opportunity to lay down. But that opportunity to go to seminary is, I think about that often. Like, that's like the brotherhoods that were created in there, and the amount of focus that you have on the game and on your guys and learn the game of football. You can't replicate it. It's just totally different from any other experience. In the league, I had opportunities where we would stay at home and still go to camp. It's just not the same. It's not the same. I really appreciated that seminary experience. I don't think they do it now. And I remember at some point they stopped, but that was an awesome experience. I really did enjoy it. Is it extremely hard, extremely challenging? Absolutely. But you come out of it a much better player, a much better man, because it shows you, when you put the work in, the results that you can get. But I would never take those experiences back for anything. You walk out, the field's still wet, and your equipment is still wet from the previous practice. But it's just a great feeling. The smell of it, the food, it was just awesome.
So Sparky, you graduated the year after. So that was my senior year.
Mm-hmm.
We moved back to the stadium. So you were at your unpacked apartment because you're saying you have no time to do anything else. Unpacked apartment, but the bed was open so you could sleep on it. And everyone had an air mattress in the locker room. So whenever you had a break, nobody left. Everyone just slept on the floor. Honestly, like, I hated the seminary because it was only football all day, every day. You didn't see anyone else. Like, it was bananas to me. Like, you're on an island. But then when we went and did this, I was like, man, I kind of would rather be at the seminary.
Yeah.
Just with air conditioning in the rooms. But besides that,
you didn't have time to even go home. It ended up turned out to be the same exact thing.
It basically did without a bed.
Yeah. When you're in the process, of course it seemed hard and grueling, but when you look back on it, like, man, those were good times. You remember, like, when we had, I think Rudy came in one time. Another time we had some actor that came in. It was always little things that they threw in to make it exciting and fun. Barry knew how to keep it light, but he knew how to also, get us to business.
Were you there when they brought in the hypnotist?
Yeah, I was on stage.
That is by far the funniest thing I think I've ever witnessed in my entire life.
That was like the highlight. That was like the highlight at campus when the hypnotist would come in.
They asked, so they had everyone up and they go, all right, you guys are in a plane. Oh my God, it's crashing. And everyone's freaking out up on stage. And I couldn't stop laughing. My favorite was they had Jerome Pettis and they go, hey, this dude next to you hasn't showered in a week. And Jerome's like, Jerome's face, because you're gloss over. He was like, oh man, this guy stinks. And the guy doing the hypnotist is like, why? And he's like, this guy needs to use antibacterial soap. Dude, I fell on the floor laughing. I was like, this is the funniest thing I've absolutely ever seen. But you're right. Those stories, they come back as you mentioned it. I just remember, like, what I loved is you got to be part of everyone's experience. So, like, I was hanging out with Jeff Mack and defensive guys, offensive guys, the special teams dude you watch get in the vans and go to the field. Like, they kind of disappeared. It was just nice to be part of, like, a group, because once you got to campus, everyone kind of went their separate ways, and you hung out with your friends, and the freshmen hung out, but the defense and the offense and the scout team, which you were never a part of, bless your heart for that. But it does say something about, like, building all those bridges and all those bonds with guys during the year you might not hang out with. Like, if I didn't have a lift group with you, or we didn't live together, I might never really see you.
Yep.
As crazy as that might sound. So
That's
the seminary
absolutely.
does have that.
Yeah.
I
There are
never
some
want to go
positive
back.
attributes to it. There are definitely some positive attributes to it. It just focuses you completely on football and focus you completely on the guys that you're around and helping to build that trust and that camaraderie. Like I said, it's nothing that can really replicate seminary as far as in a real world experience now.
But Sparky, when you show up, what's funny is I showed up with no cell phone because I didn't have one, and like my 2 duffel bags of clothes because I had nowhere to live except at the seminary. And you had these guys who were seniors or 50-year seniors with like TVs, video games, like 10 fans. Like they came in and they also stayed in their room by themselves. Were you with anybody?
So my freshman year, I think it was me and I think Brett Bell. I'm pretty sure it was Brett my freshman year. Yeah. But to your point, I mean, every year I took the same thing. I took a fan, I took liquid soap, deodorant, and I took honey buns and Gatorade. And it was that way all throughout, like from my time in Wisconsin all the way through when I would play for Jacksonville. Every single camp I'd take the same thing, which probably led to the end of my career because I ate so many honey buns and had some injuries as a result. But yeah, I kept really minimal. Plus, I'm a homebody. I don't even watch a bunch of TV. So TVs, I didn't need a TV. I just needed a place to lay my head down, a pillow. That was it. Yeah.
So your first year, you're playing. You're obviously having a lot of success. What's it like in the DB room with basically 5 young guys? And who else was in there? You had Aiello.
Yeah. So me,
you had Eckles.
Yeah, Eckles. We got Joey Bose.
Joey Bose.
Yeah, very solid player. Mike Broussard. Of course, we got Jimmy in there. I'm
Chucky
sure
Cowens.
Chucky Cowens is in there, yeah. And so, for me, I was always just wide-eyed and just ready to learn. I didn't care who it was from. Even if I was quote unquote starting over them, I still wanted to learn, especially from BJ Tucker was amazing. I ended up coming in, of course, I ended up taking his spot my freshman year, but BJ treated me just like a brother my whole freshman year. Whatever I needed on and off the field, he was there. Whatever questions I had, he answered them. And then in that course of next year, he played extremely solid and went on to play for the 49ers as well. So it was a good room, a very good room. A lot of solid, unselfish guys.
What's it like learning from Mike Eckles? I mean, he's like the king of swag.
Yeah. So Mike was just super cool. Mike, it wasn't like the most I really got out of Mike was like, man, what are you doing over there, man? I'm gonna take care of this side over here. You got to take care of that side over there. That's really the most. that was the extent of his direction. You take care of your side. I'm gonna lock this side down over here. You don't always do this. I'm gonna lock this side down over here. You just take care of that over there. Give me the best guy. But I really truly grew to have a really solid, good relationship with Mike. Because he'd be able to tell me stories. Of course, from Fletch. Because me and Fletch, we didn't cross paths as much. Of course, when he was in high school, I was younger, and then once he went on to leave, we would call and talk back and forth. But me and Mike would really shoot some of those stories around, and I got some pretty amazing, awesome, funny stories as a result as well. But Mike was a good guy, very good guy.
So I know you weren't really running scout team, obviously, but did you ever have to cover Lee in practice?
Oh, absolutely.
What was that like? Because you're probably one of the few guys that could actually keep up with him.
It's crazy. I just saw Lee, I want to say it was like May of last year. And I took my son to go and work with Brandon White down in Fort Lauderdale. Receiver Factory. And then Lee was up there at the same time with his son. I'm just like, we're both just like, this is crazy. We actually got a picture, me and my son, him and his son, they were doing one-on-ones, and me and him got to talking about doing one-on-ones together. And, that duo right there, us going against each other, made me a lot better. And I hope it made him better because I played my butt off every time. I mean, you couldn't like be laxed against Lee. It just made me a lot better. Like if somebody who was just as fast as I am, if not faster, stronger, just as quick as I am. And he's the body style that I always struggle with. You know, I struggle with or have more difficulty with guys that are not as tall, but are more stockier. They're way harder to cover than the tall, lanky guys.
Why is that?
The tall, lanky guys have to take longer to get out their breaks, and they're usually not as fast. You know, they have the anomalies now, like with Metcalf, which is all everything. But for the most part, the taller guys are easier to cover than the shorter, stocky guys who are super quick, like Lee. And then, of course, Lee ran 4.2, 4.3 as well.
Lee did a lot of things. He was, I mean, you were going up against probably one of the best wide receivers Wisconsin's ever had. Now I forgot my question. But so you're saying that like DC, who is 6'6", 6'7", is easier to defend being 5'9" than Lee is.
Absolutely. And it's not, I'm not to take away from anything that DC could do. For me and how I played, that's easier for me because I can jump out the gym. If they just throw the ball in the air, I got no problem with them trying to moss me up. It's the guys who are just as quick as me and are just as strong as me. Those were the ones that I really had to hone in and bring my A game. The taller guys, they're going to take longer to come out their breaks. I'm not worried about them running past me. If they throw it up, I can jump with them.
Dude, that's fascinating stuff, man.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
No,
we also came in. Sorry, Matty P.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, you came in as pretty slender guy. Like you were saying before we started recording, like you came in like 152 or so. So what is it like getting on the field as a true freshman at 150 pounds? Like, did you have to adjust the way that you played at all? Or, you know, was it just like, okay, like I know my body and I'm gonna, you know, I know what I can do?
You know, I really didn't realize it. It didn't. I never went into a game thinking, man, I'm only 152. I got to figure this thing out. It was just like, you're in it. The lights are on. You got to throw this body around. I never really put a bunch of emphasis on it because I didn't feel like it held me back. I didn't feel like it limited me. As long as I can take on blocks, as long as I can get guys on the ground, then I felt like I was okay. And to be honest, the only time I really noticed my weight was when I was my first game of my senior year. I was 182 pounds with no weights in my ruds at all. And I really worked my butt off to get this weight on, played solid that game, but I actually felt heavy. And so after that, I actually had to lose weight. I got down to 178, 176 because I didn't feel comfortable at that weight. I felt big. I felt like I was breathing harder. I probably put on bad weight is what it essentially was. And so once I got back down, I felt like my same quicker, more agile self. That's the only time I really noticed my weight on the field.
So, and you also came in. You came in with a bunch of good wide receivers, and you with us. You had Jo, you had DC. Eventually, OD became a wide receiver type of guy. What was it like going against the guys that you came in with?
Yeah, so and Dante Sanders was one of them too, because Dante came as a pretty highly touted receiver as well.
Yeah, we actually just had him on last week, so
that's my guy. He's a good guy. He's doing some very, very big things now as well. I just texted him a couple of days ago, but talk about somebody maturing, goodness. But you know, like I said, our mentality was so different. Like we would be in the dorm room, 11 o'clock at night, we would get to arguing. We would find our way into the stadium to go do one-on-ones. I'm talking about 12 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. And this was like often, like however we could get in there and do one. And I'm, like I said, I'm ripping guys' shirts off. Dantes would make fun of me. He's like, man, I got to get a new shirt every week because you ripped my shirt off me. But it was definitely like some great competition. DC as well, me learning how to cover larger receivers. That's when I realized that, man, it's a lot easier than covering these shorter guys. We had some extremely solid guys that helped me to really improve my game very quick. We had, and this guy was older, but Nick Davis, he was a short, stocky, extremely strong guy. Yeah, fast. He had a lot of great attributes as well. And he helped me to really improve my game as well.
You know, Sparky, I guess just for me, like, what's it like playing with those guys? Because I mean, I redshirted, so I didn't get a lot of experience with those senior guys like Herbs. Who else? There's a bunch of dudes. Delonte,
Yeah,
like all these guys. Like, what's it like playing with those? And what was it like playing against like Martinelli? Like, I'm trying to think of who was on that poster. By the way, it probably is the coolest poster. Wendell Bryant. Like, what's it like playing with these dudes? I just played scout team against. It must have been so special to be a young, like 18, 19-year-old kid playing with Wendell Bryant. Like, that's so cool.
You gotta remember, a lot of these guys played in the Rose Bowl too. And so the accountability level was high and they expected a lot. But I wasn't there yet. I wasn't there. And some of the guys we had on the field, they weren't quite there yet. So they may have had a high expectation of us because of where they had been, but we just weren't there as a team yet. And so I almost felt like I let them down sometimes, especially like Michigan State game my freshman year. And I remember them really just taking me as like, man, like, you got to get better. Like, we can't have this. It really taught me, like, you really have to be accountable to the guys around you. Like, you can't be selfish. You got to do the extra during the week. You got to do whatever you have to do in order to be prepared to play your best for the guys around you. Be where you're supposed to be. Have your mind where it's supposed to be. Have your eyes where they're supposed to be. Because if I'm doing all that right, I'm going to be accountable to the guys next to me. And that game stands so far on my brain. That's why I hate Michigan State to this day. It's because I let my guys down. That's it. I have fans walking behind me. Hey, Fletch called. He said he wants number 2 back. That was one of the worst games of my life because I didn't prepare well. I remember Bradford came in. He's like, hey, we got this guy, Herb Haygood, very good receiver. Mike Eckles, you're going to have to match up against him. And they have this other guy. He's number 1. I don't know, Charles Rogers guy. You can just cover him, Scott. And I'm like, okay, I got an easy day. No, that was not an easy day. That was one of the worst days of my life because I went into it with the mindset of I'm better than this guy. I don't have to prepare as hard. Mike X has the hard job for this game, which is wrong. No matter who you play against, you got to come in ready to go. And after that game, it's like, okay, I can't do that anymore. I'm letting my guy down.
I mean, you did happen to go up against a wide receiver that was one of the best in the Big Ten.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, you didn't know that. So is that the game that really flipped the switch and was like, all right, I figured out what I got to do. I'm going to go do it, and I'm going to produce at a high level.
Yep. And so that really changed my preparation. I was all after that. Of course, I was known to be a guy. Like, I would watch an immense amount of film, especially like going into my junior, senior year. I would be in there right at the practice, and I would be in there with the coaches talking like, hey, should I do this? What should we do? I'm seeing this. And that's just, that was the way of me kind of masking the fact that I was a smaller guy, because at least I could be in the right place at the right time and be able to anticipate more. Because I was already a safe player. That's why I may have had 20-something breakups where you see Jamar may have had 20-something picks. I'd rather play it safe and knock it down, and he's going to go pick the ball off, which I didn't feel comfortable doing. But yeah, that's because I was always anticipating what they were going to do, which made me a much better player for it as a result.
Was that what like, did you start that in high school, like that, like intense amount of preparation for games, or when you were in high school, were you more relying on your outstanding athleticism?
Athletic ability. In high school for sure. And then in high school, we may have had 10 Division I players on my senior team. So we knew that we was going to go in and bust heads every single game. So I can rely on the guys around me, and they can rely on me as well, because we were just better than everyone else.
What's it like when Brandon Williams shows up? Like, did you have any, like, did he call you and be like, hey, how's Wisconsin? Or like, was there any communication for that? Or he just followed in your footsteps and Fletch's footsteps, like, I want to play at Wisconsin? And then when he shows up, like, how fun is that? But then the competition, like, what's that like?
I mean, it's so much in that question. So so it was him, Moss, I think him and Moss came up at the same time. And it was also, I think Lawrence Maroney had also came on a visit as well. I think it may have been the same time. And of course, Lawrence Maroney ended up going to Minnesota. But it wasn't even a conversation like, where are you going? It's like, we know you're coming here. Same for Moss. We know you guys are coming up here. It's just a matter of getting you all up here and getting you into the system. And so if Brandon may have a completely different story, I never remember him talking about any other school. It was always Wisco in my mind for him. And then once he gets there, I mean, me and Brandon fought daily, I want to say, like daily, because he talks a lot. I mean, a lot. And he is a super competitor and he's a great athlete. And I just love shutting him up. I remember my last practice in Tampa, we were getting ready to play in a bowl game. Me and Brandon get into a fight. It's like NFL coaches and scouts. Shaq was there. He was the GM, I want to say, or player personnel guy for Jacksonville at the time. And he's talking to me. He's like, man, wasn't you fighting one of your best friends? I was like, yep, that happens all the time. I ended up hurting my knee fighting him because he just talks too much. But he made me better too, man. Like, I absolutely love that guy and adore the way he plays with so much passion. You can't watch him, just like when you watch Jamar, you can't watch Brandon and not get excited. He is a baller for sure, who could have played for a very long time. His little silly self got his focus off, but he was a very good player.
Now, we all know that Brandon was a world-class trash talker. Did you talk? Were you a talker on the field at all?
You know, it was more subtle than he would. It's more subtle. I wasn't like in the face. I like to, and it also depends on the receiver too. It also depends on the receiver. If it's a guy I truly do like playing against Santonio Holmes, there's no talking going on, because if you talk, the next play you're gonna get beat in the post. So it's just like I'm just focused in. If it's Sam Rudy Poop from wherever who thinks he's great, I'm talking to him the whole game. We playing against Minnesota, I'm talking the whole game. I'm trying to jam you up, especially if you're a tall receiver. I'm trying to jam you up and I'm talking to you the whole game. But most of the time, I kept it really even keel.
I just remember I would go up. There were some guys like I was not allowed to hit, not because of any real reason, but Sparky, you're one. Jimmy Leonard was 100% do not touch him. And even on inside, you're like, dude, this guy's in the C gap. Like, what do you want me to do? Just run? I would run right by him. But Sparky, I remember I'd like, just come kind of give you like a little kiss and like hold your chest, and you'd be mad that I'm holding your chest. And, and you would always just be like, yo, Bernie, don't do that again, or I'll cut your legs out next time. And I was like, man, this guy is great. Like, you wouldn't scream or do any of that stuff. Like Brandon Williams would scream and be all over the place. You're like, yo, Bernie, I'll cut your legs out next time. I just always thought that was so funny, because I'm like, man, that is really what you should be doing.
Right.
Like, I'm 100 pounds heavier than you. You should cut my legs out.
And that's 100% true. And I remember like guys who didn't know how to practice. And I mean, getting into it with some of the scout team guys because they didn't know how to practice. And it wasn't because they were trying to be All-Americans. They just didn't do what they were supposed to do. And so when somebody would do something that they thought that they were being great at, it would piss me off. It would piss me off so bad. You run a terrible route and I can't cover it. That would piss me off so bad. And then that would lead me to like slamming them down every play. Or if Bernie comes out, he's like driving me down the field and I can't do anything about it. It's like, hey, next time I'm just going to cut you so I don't look bad.
Listen, there wasn't, what's good about, I always knew that we had this like nice little love connection, because you would just do a shake and get around me, dude. You were too fast for me. I hated hitting corners. I actually remember I think we played Temple one year. Did we play Temple, Matt? I think we did.
Yeah,
this might be an 03, 05, 04, 03.
You guys played Temple.
Probably Akron.
I want to say no. I think I'm pretty sure you played Temple in 04 or 05.
05. It was 05.
Maybe it might have been 05. So you'll love this, Mari. I ran out.
Yeah, second game. Yeah, it was second game of 05.
Whew.
It was
too many hits for the fullback here.
Yeah, second game of 05. Another one of those games where Brian Calhoun had like 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, so I ran out.
The next number 2.
Yeah, the next number. I ran out to block the corners are standing there. And I was like, I'm not even going to try to blow him up. So I cut him. This dude gets up. His coach, we're on their sideline. The coach is like, yo, 45, you're a wimp. And then, and the corner's like, dude, did you just cut me? And I was like, I might be back the next play, and I'm going to cut you again. Like, you guys are too fast for me. And it was more colorful. The coach was like MFing me, like, what a pansy. But I was like, you know what? I don't really care. These guys, I know what Sparky could do out there. These guys are too fast for me. Sparky, I have one more good story about you.
Mm-hmm.
You saved my life. You don't even know it. We're running stadiums. I'm in the skill group, which is not fair. It was me and Greg Root are in the skill group, and we ran up first. This has got to be like the 8th one going up. And I'm like 3 or 4 steps up, and I'm on hands and knees, like can hardly do it. And all of a sudden, dude, this beautiful, like jacked man runs up behind me, like kind of scoops my arm and gets me up like 3 stairs, and I touch the wall, and I look back, and I'm like, oh man, Sparky, this is the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me in the world. I swear I was so happy. I was like, I'm done. I
miss stadium stairs, man. I miss stadium stairs. Like, that's one of those things where it sucks in the moment, but then when you get done, it's like, man, I love you guys. We made it together. And then we go do like these terrible 7-on-7s. Everybody's cramping up, trying to catch the ball. But I miss those times. Like, people say, do you miss playing football? I miss times like that where it's only you and the guys, and you building this strong bond, this strong connection that you couldn't have done it unless you all came together. Like you said, I came up and scooped you up. Like, you can't recreate that in any other arena. And that's the type of things I miss. I miss the locker room. I miss being with the guys. The actual everyday grinding. I can go without that. I just missed that connection with the guys. Like, that was awesome to me.
The connection with the guys is the only way that made the grind acceptable,
tolerable.
Tolerable. Yeah, I mean, lifting all the time, going to class, like you were in class, you knew the guys you were in class with, so like you basically did everything with each other all day long until, like, we were even doing study table at 7 to 9 o'clock at night.
Yep.
I mean,
and go hop on the scooters.
And go hop on your scooter and go home at 9 o'clock and then just basically go to sleep and do it again.
Yeah.
That's what first semester was. Yep. Hop on our scooters. Do you miss your scooter?
I do miss my scooter, man. I do. It's funny because I went back to finish my degree. I want to say it's in, 2011, somewhere around there. And I got a scooter to get around. I have my car and my scooter. And when we had a scooter, you parked it anywhere you want to. And so I parked it, and I went inside class. I got like 3 tickets. I'm like, what in the world? How I get a ticket on my scooter? Where you have to park in the scooter spots, and you have to get like, how did this happen? Where do we come? How do we get to the point where we have to get a place to park our scooters? Who gonna make money off of that? So yeah, that was funny. So I did. When I went back to school, I did get me a nice scooter, man. And I missed getting around on my scooter. I almost died on it a couple of times.
Oh, a couple. We didn't even wear helmets.
Yeah.
I remember so
I was in front of Red Gym one time. I actually almost killed a girl too. But I was in front of Red Gym one time, and this guy had a scooter that's way faster than mine, and he hit my handlebar. And my handlebars did like this, and I went over the top. And I did my hands like this to protect my head, and they slid out, and I hit my head on the ground. And I had a concussion. I get to class, I'm just sitting there like this. I got blood coming down my face. They're like, oh my gosh, you gotta go. And I'm like, what? What's going on?
So looking back, I would have worn a helmet.
Red Gym.
Absolutely.
I mean, a helmet, and if it rained or snowed or did anything else, I would have not.
Yeah.
Actually, I probably would have, but you should not have.
Yeah, I fell in front of an 18-wheeler before because it was snowing. Until to the point where I gotta like push my bike out of the way and run out the way.
It's funny to laugh at now, but it's really not funny.
Not at all.
Not at all. So Sparky, I know we only have for a little bit more time, but dude, walk us through, like, I remember Pro Day. Walk us through your experience after football, after Wisconsin ends, and then drafted in the 3rd round. Like what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so definitely was like if I had any advice to give the guys who are going through that process now, just enjoy it. It's easy to get caught up in the numbers and, thinking about all these steps down the road, where am I going to go? Just enjoy the process, because it goes by like that. You got this limited time where it seems like everybody wants you and you're trying to figure out, where am I going to go? Am I going to go? It's a very kind of stressful time. And so really just enjoy that process. For me, going to the combine, and you see all these guys who you've heard about for the past 4 years who've been all world, and seeing them in action, like, okay, I see why you're all world. And you see some guys you're like, I'm better than this guy. Like, what? That was an awesome experience. Combine was a very, very awesome experience. I remember going in and seeing Roll. I think it's Antrell Roll.
Antrell or Samari, yeah, one of those guys.
Yeah, it was Antrell. He came in on the day before we had the field day. He's like, hey, good luck, y'all. Have a good one. And peaced out, didn't do a single drill, just said what's up to us, and gets drafted like in top 10. I'm like, dang, that must be nice. And so for me, I had no clue. I didn't have a bunch of interviews down there. I had like 2 interviews set up. And then you go to this like pool where you kind of like bounce around, which is where I actually met my eventual position coach, which was Dave Campo. So draft day comes by and first round goes by. I know I was supposed to go somewhere between 2nd and 4th. First round goes by. Of course, I didn't think it was anywhere possible. 2nd round, Pittsburgh rolls around, says it's possible I could possibly go to Pittsburgh. They end up taking another corner. Then they may have taken 2 corners. But in my draft class, I think it was like the record for the most amount of cornerbacks taken in the first day. And draft was, of course, set up different back then. It was 1 through 3, 4 through 7. And so when it came around to Jacksonville in the 3rd round, I'm like, hey, this could be a possibility, because that's why I said I spoke with at my last practice ever in Tampa Bay for the bowl game. And I said, this could be a possibility. And I've always said when I was a kid, I wanted to play in Florida, always, because I would come down here and play at Nationals. I love the way these guys play football down here. And sure enough, I get a call from Coach Del Rio and from Shaq, from my position coach. They're like, we're getting ready to take you with our next pick. Just wait. All right, you're a Jaguar. And I see it pop up on the board. And I'm like, wow. And then there comes that oh crap moment, like, oh, I really have to go play now. And so I remember showing up in that locker room, and it was like, wow, I'm here. And guys like, who brought that little brother in here, man? Come get this little kid out of here. So, just going through that process and, having an opportunity to play, and expectations as a 3rd round pick, and coming in and seeing guys you've seen play, for years, and just amazing athletes, being right next to Fred Taylor, and seeing Jimmy Smooth. And it was just an amazing, amazing experience that I would never want to have taken away. Of course, it was just a great experience for me in the NFL. Strictly a business, of course, and a business that outgrew me. I had a lot of injuries that ended up tearing my ACL, tearing my pec, and breaking another couple of bones, but still wouldn't take it back for that. Had the opportunity to play against some extremely great players as well. But love the experience, love my time in the NFL. A lot of people like to say, oh, I'll retire from football. That unless you're Tom Brady, you don't retire from football. Most of the time, football retires you. And it's just one of those things where once it's over, it's over. So
speaking of the combine, you had the longest broad jump of the combine. Yeah.
I used to be able to boast that. And actually, I landed my second one. I landed at about 12.2. And a little bit of wind blew, and I fell backward, put my hand back. And then the next one is when I went, I think 11.6.
12.2 would be the longest, was second longest in combine history. But yeah, I mean, you tested incredibly well at the combine. What do you think? I mean, obviously you're a naturally, fast, phenomenal athlete, but I mean, you had a top 10 40 time. You had, I think, like the 3rd highest vertical at that combine, 3rd or 4th. You had obviously the longest broad jump. Your shuttle drill was in the top 10. Your 3-cone drill was pretty good too. So like, what do you think, what prepared you to test so well at the combine, and what advice would you give guys? I mean, you already told them to, just enjoy every minute of it, but what what advice would you give to guys, especially from Wisconsin? There are a lot of D-backs from Wisconsin right now who are prepping for the combine.
JD, I don't even know if he's around. I don't know if he's retired, but JD was awesome, super intense, but he had some really great little key points, fundamentals that I just followed. I think when I came in, I may have been like a high 4.5 guy, maybe even 4.6, and I left 4.28. Every year I shaved off, a good amount of time, and then my vertical just went insane just from the explosion drills he would do. We do box drills, and he was very technical, very, very technical. And you can do something good. He'd be like, okay, good, but there's better, And so just really, he really helped us to hone in on the little portions of each drill and hone in on our craft and be great at what you can do. And so JD, I really can attribute a lot of that success straight to him.
Yeah, 43-inch vertical, man. Ain't nothing like it.
I miss those days. Like even when I look now and I stand on the field and I look out to what, even 11 feet is or how many yards they could be, I'm like, that is impossible for me right now. I put Ron Jeff down, it's like 7'4".
What was crazy though was that right behind you in the broad jump was Jonathan Welch. He had a huge one that year.
Yeah. He was just a good athlete too. Yeah. Big, long, strong guy. And he was a great athlete. We had a lot of great athletes though. Yeah.
All right.
J-Dub was my locker partner right next to me. I absolutely because he didn't really talk a lot of smack, but he would talk like you under his breath. And I sat there and just listened to that kid every day. Like I absolutely loved J-Dub. But he had long arms, like he was a freak. He was all muscle. And he was light too.
This day too. I still talk to him.
He's a good dude. Yeah. Wait, so Sparky, before we get out of here, I definitely want to hear more. Like, who are the guys you played against in the league that were just like outstanding?
Somebody just asked me this question the other day. And it's two guys that really stood out in my brain, and really two stories. So I played against Anquan Bolden, and that was by far the hardest person I ever had to cover in the slot. Every single play he came off and he headbutted me, whether it was a route, whether it was a blocking play, whether it was offsides, it didn't matter. And so by the end of the game, I'm just like over it. He's the only person I felt physically defeated after I played against him. He came on, bam, every play. And so by the end of it, I'm just like, oh, please just stop. And he had a solid game again. Of course, I was dazed the whole game. So he was probably the hardest guy in a one-on-one. And then I remember playing against Steve Smith, and I caught him, a little bit early in his career. He may have had an injury, but he only had one catch for, I want to say, like 4 yards against me. We had a guy get hurt, and he's like, Scott, you got to lock up with Steve for the rest of the game. Cool, let's do it. I was excited for the opportunity. And I remember I had a very good play against him, and he came back, and I was talking stuff for some stupid reason. I guess I was feeling myself. He's like, who are you? Nobody knows your name. I'm like, you're right, but I just made a play.
And he's one of those body types like Lee that you were mentioning, right? He's one of those guys that's a little shorter, a little thicker, really fast, in and out of his breaks. Like,
that's exactly right. Exactly right. So I had to really bring my A game, and I just happened to be the right day against him. He was a little bit hurt. Quarterback was a little bit off, and I just happened to feel great that day.
All right. So I usually get guys out of here with a couple rapid fire questions. You already mentioned toughest receiver guard, Anquan. What about in college? Who was the toughest guy for you to guard?
Oh, shoot. We're going to go with, does it count when I say Charles Rodgers?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That counts.
I really didn't guard him. He just kind of ran past me. Him and Lee Evans, of course.
All right. Who's the biggest physical freak you either played with or against? Like a guy either like in the, who just like in the gym or even on the field, just like this dude is a freaking Adonis.
Oh, that's Greg Jones. Greg Jones. Like when he walks into the room, I said, man, does your wife ever get used to you walking into the room? Because he just walks in just like glistening enough. Like, goodness, how are you built like that? So yeah, Greg Jones for sure.
Brandon Williams accepted. Who's the best trash talker that you know?
would stay with B Will. B Will and also Jamar, of course. Those
Okay.
two. Yeah.
I love it. What is your pregame ritual? What are you doing on game day to get yourself mentally and physically ready?
Yeah, so first things first is it's gonna be some vomit involved. I threw up probably for every single game that I played.
You and Bill Russell.
Yeah, I'm giving it up every game. And from there, it literally, especially towards the end of my career, it takes me probably 2 hours to get warmed up. I got to be on the field, which is why I knew my last game. I was like, this is my last game. I'm not gonna be able to play anymore because we had a 2 hour delay, and then we're gonna go directly into the game. And at that point in my career, I was like, it's over because I'm not gonna be able to cover anybody. So I gotta have a long time to really warm the body up. And so me and Rasheem Mathis, who was my probably one of my best friends in the world, me and him would go out, throw the ball together, go through every single break, every single route together. And then from there, it's putting on the pass and get ready to rumble.
All right. And what's the hardest hit you ever took?
Oh, shoot. It goes out to back to when I was 9 years old. Like, I can still remember this one. We did a fake punt. I was playing against a team in Georgia, and I ran out to the left, and guy put his helmet right in my chest, and my feet went above my head, and the first thing to hit was the back of my head. Ooh. And I landed right between my brother and my dad, and they just kind of split apart and just looked at me fall. And I was laid down for a second. I looked up, and that was probably the only time I ever cried on the field. But that was by far the hardest I've ever been hit in my life. And I've gotten some pretty nasty concussions, but that was a hard one right there. 9 years old, wherever that kid is now, I hope he's doing all right because I'm still recovering.
So I'm still thinking about it right now. Sparky, dude, this is a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I talked to J.O. and he was telling me about it. He said, man, you got to check this out. And I went through and I watched a few. I was like, I gotta shoot them a message, tell them I want to get on there. So thank you for responding so quickly and you all let me on as well.
No, dude, this is very big for us. We just love hearing how cool these stories are. Dude, how many people know that you got your number and you said you wanted to come here from sitting in a meeting room with Fletch just watching film? Like, I didn't even know that. Yeah. So, I mean, like, that's so cool to me.
Yeah, but I truly do. I love what you all are doing because I'm a Badger through and through. I go around and I say, hey, do you bleed red? And they say, yeah. I said, well, you can be a Badger too. I'm still a huge Badger fan, and I'm blessed to be a part of the Badger family as well.
I love it. You were my college roommates and one of my best friends in the world. You are his favorite player of all time. The only jersey he ever bought was your number 2 jersey. So like this is a pleasure. This is a pleasure for all of us.
Yep, definitely was a pleasure for me. So I greatly appreciate it, fellas.
For sure.
Thanks,
for sure. And until next time, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Yes, sir. Take it easy.